It started with a vibration on my phone, a shrill, insistent buzz that jolted me awake at 2:17 a.m. I fumbled for the screen, eyes blurry, heart pounding in the dark. The words glowed red against the black. Emergency alert. Stay inside until further notice. This is not a test. I blinked, trying to make sense of it. My apartment was silent, the city outside unusually still. No sirens, no traffic, not even the distant hum of late-night trains. Just the alert, repeating every few seconds, the same message flashing on my phone, my TV, even the old radio I kept for storms. I sat up, adrenaline prickling under my skin. I'd lived through tornado warnings, amber alerts, even a citywide blackout last summer. But this was different. The message was everywhere, and it didn't say why. I texted my group chat. Me? Anyone else get that alert? Jess? Yeah. WTF is going on? Tyler? Dude, my mom's freaking out. She says the news is just looping the same message. Sam? I looked outside. The street's empty. Not even the neighbor's dog is barking. I got up and peeked through the blinds. The city was frozen. Streetlights flickered, but not a single car moved. The air felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. I turned on the TV. Every channel was the same, a red banner at the bottom, the words scrolling endlessly. Emergency alert, stay inside. Lock all doors and windows. Do not respond to anyone outside. Wait for further instructions. No anchors, no news, just the alert in a low, droning tone that made my teeth ache. I tried to call my parents, but the line was dead. My phone buzzed again. Another alert, this one more urgent. Do not open your door for anyone, even if they appear to be family or friends. Do not go outside. My skin crawled. I checked the locks, bolted the windows, pulled the curtains tight. My apartment felt smaller, the shadows deeper. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate, echoing off the concrete walls. I held my breath, listening as they stopped outside my door. A knock. 3 sharp raps, then silence. I didn't move. The alert's words echoed in my mind. Do not open your door for anyone. The knocking came again, softer this time. Hey, it's me. Open up. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Green. She lived across the hall, always brought me cookies at Christmas, always smiled in the elevator. Her voice was shaky, but familiar. Please, I need help. My phone's not working. I just need to use yours. I almost reached for the handle. Almost. But something was wrong. Her voice was off, too flat, too calm. I remembered the alert. Even if they appear to be family or friends. I backed away, heart hammering. The knocking stopped. Silence pressed in, thick and suffocating. My phone buzzed again. Do not look outside between 3 o'clock and 4 a.m. Do not answer the door. Do not make noise. I checked the time. 2:54 a.m. I turned off the lights, crawled into the closet, and pulled a blanket over my head. My phone buzzed, but I ignored it. I tried to breathe quietly, tried not to think about the footsteps I could still hear, moving from door to door, always stopping, always knocking. At 3:07 a.m., the building groaned. I heard voices in the hallway, dozens of them, all at once, whispering, laughing, calling out names. Some sounded like my friends. Some sounded like my parents. I pressed my hands over my ears, squeezed my eyes shut, and waited. The voices faded. The footsteps stopped. The world went silent again. At 4:01 a.m., my phone buzzed one last time. All clear. It is now safe to leave your home. Thank you for your cooperation. I waited another hour before I dared to move. When I finally opened the door, the hallway was empty. But on every door, smeared in something dark and sticky, was a single word. Lucky. I never found out what happened that night. The news said it was a false alarm, a glitch in the system. But I know what I heard. I know what I almost let in. Now, every time my phone buzzes in the night, I remember the rules. And I never, ever open the door. The days after the alert felt wrong, like the world had shifted a few inches to the left and nobody else noticed. People went back to work. The city buzzed with its usual noise. But every conversation, every glance, felt loaded with something unspoken. I tried to ask around, at the coffee shop, at work, even in the elevator with Mrs. Green. She smiled, but her eyes darted away from mine. No one mentioned the alert. No one talked about the night the city went silent. But I saw the signs. The neighbor across the hall, the one who always played music too loud, moved out overnight. His door was still marked with that word, lucky, but the apartment was empty. The old man on the third floor, who used to walk his dog every morning, was just gone. The dog barked at every closed door for days, then stopped. I started noticing other things, too. Streetlights that flickered in patterns, 3 short, 1 long, 3 short. People who walked a little too stiffly, who blinked a little too slowly, who never seemed to look you in the eye. A new poster on the bus stop. In case of emergency, stay inside. Trust the alerts. Do not open the door. I tried to forget, to move on. But every night, I double-checked the locks. I kept a flashlight and a baseball bat by my bed. I slept with the TV on, just for the noise. Then, a week later, it happened again. This time, the alert came at 1:11 a.m. Emergency alert. Shelter in place. Do not go outside. This is not a test. My heart dropped. I grabbed my phone, but the group chat was silent. No one replied. The city outside was quiet, too. No cars, no sirens, just the low hum of the building's old heating system. I turned on the TV. The same red banner, the same scrolling words. Do not respond to anyone outside. Do not open the door. I sat in the dark, waiting. The minutes crawled by. At 2 a.m., the knocking started again. This time, it was different. It was my own voice. Hey, it's me. Open up. I forgot my keys. I froze. I could hear myself. Every inflection, every nervous laugh. It was like listening to a recording, but I knew I hadn't said those words. The knocking grew louder, more insistent. Come on, let me in. It's cold out here. I backed away, pressing myself against the far wall. My phone buzzed. Do not open the door. Do not respond. The knocking stopped. Silence. Then, a scraping sound, like nails dragging down the length of the door. I covered my ears, squeezed my eyes shut, and waited. At 3 a.m., the alert changed. If you see yourself outside, do not let them in. I didn't dare look out the peephole. I didn't move until the sun came up. When I finally opened the door, the hallway was empty. But this time, there was something new. A slip of paper slid under my door. You're learning. Keep following the rules. No signature. No explanation. I called my parents again. This time, the line rang, but no one answered. I started to wonder if I was the only one who remembered. If I was the only one who followed the rules. I stopped sleeping through the night. Every creak of the building, every gust of wind against the window, jolted me awake. I kept the emergency alerts app open, refreshing it every hour, even though I knew it wouldn't help. The city felt different now, like something was watching, waiting for someone to slip up. I started writing down the rules, just to keep them straight in my head. Stay inside when the alert comes. Do not open the door for anyone. no matter who they sound like. Do not look outside between 3 o'clock and 4 a.m. If you see yourself outside, do not let them in. Wait for the all clear. I taped the list to my fridge, to the back of my phone, even to the bathroom mirror. I didn't want to forget, not even for a second. A few days later, I heard from Jess. She texted me out of the blue. "Jess, you awake?" Me, "Yeah, you okay?" "Jess, can I come over? I don't want to be alone tonight." I hesitated. Jess was my best friend, the one person I trusted. But the rules echoed in my mind. Do not open the door for anyone. Me, "I'm sorry. I can't. Not tonight." She didn't reply. That night, the alert came at 2:22 a.m. Emergency alert. Stay inside. Do not open the door. I sat in the dark, clutching my phone, listening to the silence. At 2:45, there was a knock. "Please, it's Jess. I just want to talk. Please, let me in." Her voice was perfect. Every word, every sob, every plea. I almost broke. I almost opened the door. But I didn't. The knocking stopped. The silence returned. In the morning, I called Jess. She answered, groggy and confused. "I never came to your place last night," she said. "I was asleep." What? I didn't know what to say. I just told her I was glad she was okay. After that, I stopped trusting voices in the night. I stopped trusting anything that came after the alert. The next week, the city changed again. People started disappearing. The old woman who fed the pigeons on the corner. The barista at the coffee shop. The security guard in my building. No one talked about it. No one asked questions. But I saw the missing posters, the empty apartments, the way people hurried home before dark. One night, I saw someone standing under the streetlight outside my window. They looked just like me. Same hair, same jacket, same nervous way of shifting from foot to foot. They stared up at my window, smiling. I closed the curtains and didn't look again until morning. I started keeping a journal, just in case. If something happened to me, I wanted someone to know the rules, to know what was really going on. I wrote down every alert, every strange noise, every time I saw someone or something that looked like me. The city felt emptier every day. The buses ran less often. Stores closed early. People avoided eye contact, hurried from place to place, always glancing over their shoulders. It was like we were all waiting for the next alert, the next night when the world would go wrong. One afternoon, I found a flyer taped to my door. Community meeting, tonight at 7 p.m. Share your experiences. Learn how to stay safe. I almost laughed. Who would go out after dark now? But curiosity got the better of me. I waited until sunset, then slipped downstairs to the lobby. A handful of neighbors were there. Mrs. Green, the young couple from 2B, the janitor who always whistled off-key. We sat in a circle, eyes darting to the windows every time a car passed. The building manager, Mr. Lee, stood up. He looked tired, older than I remembered. "We all know what's been happening," he said quietly. "The alerts, the disappearances, the visitors. I don't know what they are, but I know the rules work. If you follow them, you survive." He handed out copies of the rules, printed in bold red letters. He added a new one. "If you hear your name whispered from the vents, do not answer. Cover your ears and wait for it to stop." People shared their stories, knocks at the door, voices that sounded like loved ones, shadows moving in the hallway. We all agreed. The rules were the only thing keeping us safe. After the meeting, I felt a little less alone, but also more afraid. If so many people knew, why wasn't anyone doing anything? Why weren't the police or the government helping? That night, the alert came earlier than usual. Emergency alert, shelter in place. Do not open the door. Do not respond to anyone outside. I locked every door, checked every window, and waited. At 10:13 p.m., the vents in my apartment began to whisper my name over and over in a dozen different voices, some I recognized, some I didn't. I covered my ears, squeezed my eyes shut, and waited for it to stop. When it finally did, I found another slip of paper under my door. You're still here. Good. But it gets harder from here. No signature. No explanation. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, the city felt even more hollow. I walked to the corner store for groceries, passing shuttered windows and empty sidewalks. The cashier barely looked at me, sliding my change across the counter with trembling hands. I wanted to ask if she'd gotten the alerts, if she'd heard the voices, but I was afraid of the answer. Back in my apartment, I checked the locks again. I read and reread the rules, tracing each word with my finger. I tried to call my parents, but the line was dead. I tried to text Jess, but the message wouldn't send. That night, I sat by the window, watching the streetlights flicker. At midnight, the alert came again. Emergency alert. Do not leave your home. Do not open the door. Do not look outside. I turned off every light, hid in the closet, and waited. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the occasional creak of the building settling. At 1 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate, stopping outside every door. I held my breath, heart pounding, as they paused outside mine. A soft knock, then another, then a voice, my own, but wrong, stretched and hollow. Let me in. I forgot my keys. Please. I pressed my hands over my ears, rocking back and forth, whispering the rules to myself. The footsteps moved on. The knocking faded. At 2 a.m., the vents began to whisper again. This time, the voices were angry, insistent, promising things I didn't want to hear. I waited, counting the seconds, until the whispers stopped. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. All clear. It is now safe to leave your home. I didn't move until sunrise. The next day, I found another slip of paper under my door. You're doing well. But soon, the rules will change. Be ready. I stared at the note, fear coiling in my stomach. What did that mean? How could the rules change? They were the only thing keeping me alive. I started writing new rules, just in case. If the alert changes, pay attention. If the voices get louder, hide somewhere new. If you see someone you know outside, wait until morning to check on them. If you find a note, read it, but never write back. I taped the new list to my fridge, my phone, and my mirror. I waited. The days blurred together. I barely left my apartment, surviving on canned food and bottled water. The city outside seemed to shrink, the world reduced to the four walls of my living room. I watched the news, but it was always the same, endless loops of weather reports, traffic updates, and smiling anchors who never mentioned the alerts. One afternoon, I heard a knock at the door. It was light, almost hesitant. I froze, every muscle tensed. The rules echoed in my mind. Hello, a voice called. It was Jess. Or at least, it sounded like her. I know you're in there. Please, I just want to talk. I didn't answer. I didn't move. The voice grew softer, pleading. Please. I'm scared. I don't know what's happening. I pressed my back against the wall, heart racing. I wanted to believe it was her. I wanted to open the door, to let someone, anyone, break the loneliness. But I remembered the rules. I remembered the voices, the notes, the warnings. Eventually, the footsteps faded. The silence returned. That night, the alert came at 11:11 p.m. Emergency alert. The rules have changed. Do not trust anyone. Do not trust the alerts. My blood ran cold. I stared at the screen, reading the words over and over. What did it mean? How could I not trust the alerts? They were the only thing I had. My phone buzzed again. New rule. If you receive conflicting instructions, trust yourself. I sat in the dark, trying to make sense of it. The rules had always been clear, absolute. Now, they were shifting, uncertain. At midnight, the vents began to whisper. This time, the voices were my own. Every fear, every doubt, every secret I'd ever tried to hide. I covered my ears, but the voices pressed in relentlessly. At 1 a.m., the alert changed again. It is now safe to leave your home. But something felt wrong. The silence outside was too deep, too complete. I waited, watching the clock, listening for footsteps, for knocks, for anything. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed one last time. Do not leave. This is your final warning. I stayed inside. When the sun rose, I found another note under my door. You made the right choice. Not everyone did. After that night, the city felt emptier than ever. I saw fewer people in the halls, fewer lights in the windows across the street. The missing posters multiplied, faces I recognized from the elevator or the corner store. No one talked about it. No one asked questions. We all just endured. I started to wonder if I was the only one left following the rules. The only one who hadn't slipped, hadn't opened the door, hadn't trusted the wrong voice. The only one who still waited for the all clear, who still checked for notes, who still listened to the warnings in the vents. One morning, I found a new flyer taped to the lobby door. Community notice. If you are still here, you are not alone. There will be a signal. Watch for the lights. No signature. No explanation. Just those words, printed in the same bold red as the rules. That night, I sat by the window, watching the streetlights. At exactly 2 a.m., they began to blink, 3 short, 1 long, 3 short. I recognized the pattern. Morse code. SOS. My heart pounded. Was it a warning? A call for help? Or a trap? My phone buzzed. Emergency alert. If you see the signal, do not respond. Do not leave your home. I stared at the screen, torn between fear and hope. Was someone else out there trying to reach me? Or was it just another trick, another test? I stayed inside. I watched the lights blink until dawn. In the morning, another note waited under my door. You're not alone, but you must survive on your own. I sat on the floor, clutching the note, tears streaming down my face. I wanted to scream, to run, to break every rule just to feel human again. But I didn't. I stayed inside. I waited. The next night, the alerts stopped coming. No warnings. No instructions. Just silence. I didn't know what to do. The rules had always been there, guiding me, keeping me safe. Now, I was on my own. I made my own rules. If the alerts stop, trust your instincts. If you feel watched, you probably are. If you hear your own voice, hide. If you see the lights blink, wait until morning. If you find a note, read it. But never, ever write back. I taped the new list to my fridge, my phone, and my mirror. And I waited. The silence stretched for days. No alerts, no knocks, no whispers in the vents. The city outside seemed frozen, as if time itself had stopped. I rationed my food, counted my water bottles, and tried not to think about how long I could last. I started to notice things I hadn't before. The way the shadows in my apartment shifted at night, stretching across the floor like reaching hands. The way the air felt heavier, pressing down on my chest. The way my own reflection in the window sometimes seemed to move just a little too slowly. One night, I woke to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Not the slow, deliberate steps I'd heard before, but frantic, running footsteps, someone pounding on doors, shouting for help. I pressed my ear to the door, heart racing. The voice was familiar. It was the janitor, Mr. Alvarez. "Please, someone, anyone, let me in. They're coming. Please." I wanted to help. I wanted to open the door, to break the rules just this once. But I remembered the warnings, the notes, the way the rules had changed. The footsteps faded. The shouting stopped. In the morning, I found a smear of something dark and sticky outside my door. No note this time. Just a single word, scrawled in trembling letters. Alone. I sat on the floor, staring at the word, feeling the weight of it settle in my chest. Was I really the only one left? Was this what survival meant? Endless waiting, endless fear, endless loneliness? I tried to distract myself. I read old books, watched movies on mute, and wrote letters I'd never sent. I kept the rules close, repeating them like a prayer. But every night, the silence grew heavier. Every night, the shadows grew longer. Then, one night, the alerts returned. My phone buzzed at 3:33 a.m. Emergency alert. Final phase initiated. Do not leave your home. Do not trust anyone. Do not sleep. My blood ran cold. I hadn't slept well in weeks, but now the thought of closing my eyes filled me with terror. I made coffee, paced the apartment, pinched my arms to stay awake. The hours crawled by, each minute heavier than the last. At 4:44 a.m., the vents began to whisper again. This time, the voices were all mine. Every fear, every regret, every secret I'd ever tried to bury. I covered my ears, but the voices pressed in relentlessly. I waited for dawn. Dawn came slowly, gray and uncertain. I watched the first light creep across the floor, half expecting it to burn away the shadows, to bring some sense of safety. But the apartment felt colder than ever, the silence deeper. I checked my phone. No new alerts. No messages. Just the last warning, still glowing on the screen. Do not sleep. I made more coffee, splashed cold water on my face, and tried to keep my eyes open. But exhaustion pressed in, heavy and irresistible. My thoughts blurred, my vision swam. I started to see things in the corners of the room, shapes that flickered and vanished when I looked straight at them. I tried to call Jess, but the line was dead. I tried to text, but the message wouldn't send. I felt more alone than ever. At noon, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, dragging footsteps, like someone barely able to walk. I pressed my ear to the door, heart pounding. A voice called out, my own voice, but hoarse, broken, desperate. "Please, let me in. I'm so tired. I just want to rest." I backed away, shaking. I knew better than to answer. I knew better than to trust any voice, even my own. The footsteps moved on. Silence returned. I sat on the floor, clutching the last note I'd found. "You must survive on your own." I tried to stay awake, but my eyelids grew heavy. I pinched my arms, bit my tongue, did everything I could to fight the pull of sleep. But eventually, I drifted off that I woke to darkness. The apartment was cold, the air thick with the smell of something metallic. I sat up, heart racing, and saw that the shadows had grown, tall, thin shapes standing in every corner, watching me with eyes that glowed faintly in the gloom. I scrambled to my feet, backing away until I hit the wall. The shapes didn't move. They just watched. My phone buzzed. "Emergency alert. You broke the rule." The shadows began to move, gliding across the floor, closing in. I pressed myself against the wall, whispering the rules, begging for another chance. Just as the first shadow reached me, the lights flickered. The shapes vanished. The apartment was empty again. My phone buzzed one last time. All clear. I collapsed to the floor, shaking, tears streaming down my face. I didn't know if I'd survived or if I was just waiting for the next test. But I was still here. The days that followed felt like living in the aftermath of a storm. The city was quieter than ever, the streets nearly empty, the sky a washed-out gray. I saw a few faces in the windows across the street, pale, watchful, just as wary as I was. No one waved. No one smiled. I kept the rules taped everywhere, even though the alerts had stopped. I checked the locks, listened for footsteps, watched the streetlights for any sign of the old patterns. I slept in short bursts, never letting myself drift too deep. Sometimes, I wondered if I was the only one left, if everyone else had broken the rules, or if they'd simply given up. But then I'd find a new note slipped under my door, always the same careful handwriting. You survived. For now. I never found out who left the notes. I never learned what the alerts really were or what waited outside on those nights. Maybe I never will. But I know this. If you ever get an alert in the middle of the night, one that tells you to stay inside, to lock your doors, to trust no one, listen. No matter how much you want to help, no matter how familiar the voice outside sounds, no matter how lonely you feel, follow the rules. Because sometimes survival isn't about being brave. It's about being careful. It's about being afraid at the right time. And it's about never, ever opening the door.